here we go. Here's a look at my supplies for this Damascus skinner that I'll be working on for the last couple weeks. I'm right now cutting the pattern out for the welt. It was so thick around the guard area that I had to like fold the piece of paper over and then trace it out. So here I'm just tracing that onto the leather to get ready to cut it out. It was the easiest way I could do it because I couldn't really bend the leather over very well to trace it out. I'm just using very sharp knives and a piece of leather. This is not the most high quality leather for the welt. Not really too concerned of how well it looks because it'll be hidden underneath the top and back piece. So I'm just trying to just cut it out with one pass if I can. If not, you got to make sure you keep your knife straight up and down or it won't cut straight. There is the welt. Make sure that it fits up just fine. So actually this sheath is actually going to be a wet molded sheath. So I've been having to think quite a bit about how I'm going to do this. It's going to take quite a bit of building up of the welt for this. Here I'm just taking measurements, transferring them to the leather. Kind of hard to see. I just don't want to write too dark on the leather that it cannot be erased. So I'm just trying to get all my correct dimensions because this is going to have a belt loop that is folded over from the top down. And then it'll be sewn and it'll have a couple notches for the strap. So here I'm just trying to keep the whole thing straight up and down. This is just kind of a time-consuming thing to make sure everything stays straight so it looks nice. I'm not having to recut everything once again. So there's the knife, just double checking everything. Remember, measure twice, measure 3 times, measure 4 times before you cut. There I was just trying to find the perfect roundness that I wanted. So I found one of the wife's bowls at the cabinet, made the marks so that the top and bottom, when it folds over, they'll be exactly the same. So, do some mental math. So there is the top section, bottom section, so that'll be folded over about midway up the elk antler. So I'm getting ready to do the same thing to get my arches cut. So just find the midpoint between the two pieces. Boom, boom, boom. And then bring my bowl back in, make my marks, and she'll be ready to cut out. Here I'm just double checking to make sure I have everything correct. Actually no, here is actually for the leather strap to secure the blade to the holster or the sheath. So I'm just finding the middle point and then finding the halfway point between those and getting ready to make the mark. These actually kind of became a pain in the butt cutting out the leather for these. Oh, breakfast time. So I had a heck of a time once I finally got everything cut out. It was just so small, and I didn't have a punch big enough, and I didn't have one that I really liked, so it was just kind of hard. Yeah, there's I was trying to find the right punch. Like, too small. I think I can just use the back of a pen. Nope, didn't quite make it. So they'll be somewhat hidden by the strap. I just need to get it somewhat close. So there, I'm just trying to erase all my pencil marks. Trying to cut a straight line using the back of the ruler. Just cut down as far as I can go, and then I'll cut the rest of it normal. This will just help out, so I'm not having to try to fight a whole big chunk of leather. So here, cut the top and the bottom. Here, make sure everything comes out nice. Just make sure everything fits up nice. Here I'm cutting out the kind of little notches and just kind of more of aesthetic than anything. But just make it look nice. Just a flat piece of leather getting folded down. Here in a minute you will see a groover tool that I will be using. So when I do fold this over, it takes away material from underneath. Up there, I'm trying to find the center line. So the groover is just kind of shaves a little bit, like a little 1/8 inch wide groove down the leather. Right there it is. And it helps so when you fold leather over, that material's not in the way. So I take off a decent amount just to make the leather fold over and have a nice place to crease at every time. And there's the welt. See how thick that is? So there's my problem I'm going to be running into when I do try to fold this knife or wet form it. I was trying to just poke the knife to try to get it cut out enough. It really wasn't working. It was taking forever. But I was able to get the sides, but just cutting that last little kind of half circle was just a royal pain in the butt. So this video would have been like an hour and a half, but I sped it up twice, broke it down into 45 minutes, and then sped it up again times 3 into 15 minutes. So this whole day took probably maybe 3-4 hours getting to where I was at. I'm just trying to pick up that last little bit of leather. Finally just, I'll get my kind of swiveling punches. And that worked a little bit better. So, but that still wasn't perfect. I don't think I recorded that. So, since I'm doing the wet form, I end up having to add a little over 1/8 of an inch for the top piece of leather so that it would stretch out. So I had to add 1/8 of an inch in the width on the top, like third of the sheath, and then kind of blend it down to the tip so that it wasn't like super wide at the top and like wide clear down towards the bottom. So here I am just giving myself like 1/8 to 5/32 extra around the edge of the sheath and then tapering that back down. It made it very interesting when I was sewing it up. So you can see it just a little bit wider than the bottom. But it actually all came together very well. Using some clips to hold everything while I'm stacking up my welt. So I ended up having to go with 3 layers of the welt on the top. So that was a total of 5 layers, count the top and bottom, to get the correct height that I needed. So here I'm just trying to cut a few pieces of scrap that I had laying around, thinking that was going to work, but man, it just was so thick. Ended up having to grab a spare piece of leather I had and just cut the whole welt out completely. So here's after I traced it out, and I'm cutting just another three pieces of the welt just to give myself plenty of room. So then after I get all those cut out, I've super glued them all together on top of the sheath. So there I got all 3 layers. Just do a little cleanup now. Just some gel super glue, stacking them up. I like cutting the welt in the middle towards the tip, so if there's any ever water that gets down inside the sheath, it'll have a place to go after it's sewn up. So here I'm just scratching the top of each piece of the welt that was on the very smooth side, just to give the super glue a little bit better grip, something to kind of soak into. So there's 2 layers of welt, and here's 3. This is the most I've ever had to put on a knife, because most of them, like this knife, I would not wet form them. Something the customer wanted, so that's what the customer got. So, and I can't have that completely sitting like that from like basically 5 layers of leather. So I'm going to have to shave off a taper in the welt to build up that back layer, so when I wet form it, it will slide in really nice. So I only need 1 layer of the welt down toward the tip. So I start from the top and just angle myself down about halfway down the sheath until I get a nice smooth transition that is pretty well even on both sides. So, and there we go. It's almost done. Just trimming up the edges before I start dyeing it. It's going to be a dark brown, which will take, I think, 3 coats is what I used. But yeah, here, looks good. Yep. Okay, now I'm using that same bevel tool that I used to cut the notches in for the fold over. Basically just rounds off the edges, so it'll clean up really nice when I use a slicker on the edge. So just doing a little final cleanup. Here I'm cutting the 1/2 inch wide strap for the to secure the handle material to the sheath. Just a little clip. I got just some snap that I'll use on it. So there, I found my length, and now I'm just going to use that same bevel tool all the way around. Here I am using a groover just to give it a little bit of kind of aesthetic. It just takes a little bit of plastic, or a little bit of the top of the piece of leather off. This is a chisel tip, 4mm. This is what I use to set my distance for my stitches. I'll just go down through there, just mark those so I get the right distance. Then I used to take it out to the shop and go ahead and drill those out, come back in and push the chisel back through to give myself the diamond tip, so the stitching folds down into the leather when it's pulled tight. So since that top piece is different width from the bottom, I'm having to try to do some things on the fly I've never done before. So here I'm just setting my top and bottom piece and using the nail and other needles, transferring those stitch holes down on the welt. Then I'll move the top piece over, do the same thing with an awl. Just transfer those pieces, so those holes, so I can go out to my shop and drill those through. There is no way I can hammer a chisel through 4 layers of 8 to 9 ounce leather. So here I have my granite piece, Christmas present for my wife, where I'm using to stamp a American flag and an R into the leather. Thank you.